With the new rulings potentially taking effect this summer, buyers will now be required to have a buyer representation agreement signed prior to touring any houses. This agreement lists various ways that they can compensate their agent, but it will no doubt leave already overwhelmed buyers asking the question, do I even need a buyer's agent? And if I have a buyer's agent, does it need to be a full service agent? Or can I just find an agent that will charge me for a specific set of services? Well, I hear you loud and clear, and I don't think there is one specific answer. Do you really need that mechanic, the plumber, the house painter? For some of you, the answer is definitely no, but I'm sure you've seen those do-it-yourself projects where you thought you definitely should not have done that yourself. So let's break this down a bit more and tailor it to your specific needs. In this video, I will discuss the full service agent, the a la carte agent, and again, that unrepresented buyer. But before we dive in, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Be sure to leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below as we discuss. And do hit that thumbs up like button if you do find anything in here helpful or useful. So let's begin with a full service buyer's agent. I think that the general public views a buyer's agent as a door opener. We're all familiar with home tours, but what else does a buyer's agent actually do? Beginning today, you should be interviewing several buyer's agents before signing anything. Once you have selected your agent and signed that buyer representation agreement, this is what you can expect from a full service agent. And we will go ahead and break this down into 5 categories. So number 1 is the buyer consultation. This could be 6+ months out, up to a year, 2 years, 3 years from your move date. This is where you, the buyer, share what is important in your search, your desired timeline, necessary financing, logistics of selling your current home if you have one, and your realtor will begin getting to work connecting you with local lenders if needed, setting up custom property searches, and educating you on the current market. Okay, and category number 2 is our active search. This is about 3 months out from your desired move date. Your agent will start actively selecting properties of interest based on your previous likes and dislikes from that custom property search. They'll most likely be perusing the hot sheet every day with you in mind and sending you anything that stands out. They'll also begin in-person or virtual home tours based on your needs. They will begin the buy-sell contract education and what to expect. It's a pretty long form, so going through that ahead of time is just really helpful, and discussing anything and clearing up any confusion. And then you'll also have those earnest money and contingency discussions, so when you are ready to make an offer, there's not a lot to be confused about and everybody is on the same page. All right, so that brings us to category number 3, which is making an offer. So your agent, when you're ready to make an offer, when you've fallen in love with this house or this property or this commercial business space, should be pulling recently sold comps to educate you and help you make the strongest offer possible based on the current market. They should also be calling the listing agent to decipher any specific desires of the seller that could give your offer an advantage. If the seller counteroffers, your agent should be guiding you through the acceptance of that or suggesting a counter to their counter if necessary. And hopefully that brings us to number 4, which is an accepted offer. And here's really where the heavy lifting begins. Congratulations, it's time to celebrate. But now you have a lot to do. Your agent will immediately send the buy-sell contract to your lender so that they can start the underwriting process, and the title company so they can open escrow. Once escrow is opened, they will provide that file information to you for the earnest money deposit, communicate the dangers of wire transfer fraud, make sure you understand those, make sure your money is protected. They should also be connecting you with local inspectors and assist with scheduling inspector home access, attend the home inspection with you, review the inspection report with you, and discuss items to list on the inspection notice, items that you're going to ask the seller to remedy before closing. Then there'll be some negotiations about those. So they should guide you through those inspection notice negotiations. They should immediately send a recap of deadlines for you to be aware of. A missed deadline could cost you thousands of dollars in forfeited earnest money. So I cannot stress the importance of these enough and staying on top of it. They should also send over some homeowner insurance recommendations for you to get quotes, arrange access for the appraiser, help you review the title commitment for anything that could be a potential problem, and walk you through the necessary disclosures and paperwork that need to be signed prior to closing. Woo! Okay, now that we have done all of that, we are at the week of closing, number 5. During the week of closing, your agent should be scheduling the signing with the title company, asking them to arrange for a mobile notary if necessary, if you're closing remotely, and informing you of what to bring to closing so you're prepared. Your agent should send you local utility company information and confirm you have set up homeowners insurance. You want to be sure that begins the morning of closing, because the minute you sign those documents, you are liable if something were to happen to the home. And you also need to set up those utilities to begin on the morning of closing or day before. Your agent will review the settlement statement and make sure your lender has sent the closing disclosure 3 days at least prior to close of escrow. Those need to be signed. Your agent will arrange for a final walkthrough of the home a day or two prior to closing to confirm that all agreed upon inspection items have been completed and receipts of work are obtained and everything's in good working condition as when you initially toured the property. If you are closing remotely, they can do the final walkthrough virtually for you. Okay, so now that we have discussed what a full service agent looks like, let's go into the a la carte agent and what that might look like. The contract, the buyer representation agreement, gives multiple ways that an agent could charge their client. So they could charge per showing, per contract written, they could charge for mileage, additional expenses, they could charge by the hour. So if you are an experienced investor or some sort of person that buys properties a lot and doesn't really need a lot of help and kind of just knows what you want, this might be a great option for you. However, if this is not who you are, I would caution against this setup because the fees could add up really quickly. How many homes or properties are you going to need to tour? How many offers will you need to write before one gets accepted? And once an offer is accepted, are you able to keep up with all of the other deadlines and forms? Do you know how to write an inspection notice and negotiate those items? With this structure, do you pay the agent at the time of service or at closing? What if something goes wrong in the negotiation period and you never make it to the closing table? I personally do not like this nickel and dime approach. I feel like it's a lazy way for an agent to operate. With this setup, an agent isn't motivated to get you to the closing table or even advocate on your behalf if they're getting paid regardless either way. A strong buyer's agent should be able to advocate on your behalf and negotiate through concessions and other avenues these additional fees so they're not tapping into your cash reserves as a buyer. Remember, with a full service agent, if you don't make it to the closing and successfully close on your dream home, they don't get paid a dime. And last but not least, let's discuss the unrepresented buyer or going directly to the listing agent. So if you go to the listing agent directly and you want them to represent you as well, that is called dual agency. It does require an additional form signed by both parties, both the seller and the buyer. And really your agent should be having a very candid conversation with you about this before you sign this form. I have been contacted multiple times by clients that signed the form without reading it or really understanding it, and then they were angry at their agent because they didn't realize what all it entailed. So basically with a dual agency, if you can picture trying to advise a poker hand or whatever card game you might play, telling somebody how they should play the next cards, but they know both hands. So it's definitely a very fragile situation right there. And I've only done I've only done one in all of my years of being a salesperson and then a broker. That should tell you something. And that was two very educated clients that agreed. But even there, it can get a little bit tricky because with multiple offers coming in or other things, trying to balance both. So you really need to make sure you have an agent that is capable of doing that if you do want to go this route. Now, if you do this route, you're really probably not saving a lot of money. You might save a little bit, but really they might give that to the seller. So if you are dually represented, you're still represented by somebody. So you still need to have that buyer representation agreement signed. They might lower what they will charge because they're also getting paid by the seller. So that is an opportunity potentially for you. However, remember, the seller hired them first. So still in the back of their mind, they might be favoring the seller, and you might be paying more or losing out on inspection notice items or other things because of doing this. So be careful if you do decide to do dual agency. Sometimes it works out brilliantly and it's fine. If you decide to go unrepresented altogether, that is certainly a choice you can make. I would definitely caution here that if you do that, that's kind of like going to court and representing yourself against a professional attorney. The seller's agent, their fiduciary duty, fancy word for legal, duty is to the seller. So anything you say can and will be used against you in negotiations. And that's just, they're being paid by the seller. That's what they're there for. So just know that you might end up leaving more money on the table doing it that way than just paying somebody and having them walk through the process with you and really getting all of those extra added things along with that. Okay, I think you can tell that I am a strong advocate for having buyer agent representation. Obviously, you're thinking, oh, of course she would say that, she's a realtor. But the irony of these lawsuits and settlement and everything is that prior to these, everything changed in 1988 when the Real Estate Buyers Agent Council was formed. So prior to that, buyers would work with a sub-agent of the seller's broker, and they thought they were represented, but they were not, because those were still employed by the seller's agent. So the fiduciary duties, the legal duties, were to the seller, not the buyer, but the buyer didn't know this. So you can see how this all played out. And buyers were completely unprotected. Sellers had way too much control. So buyer representation is incredibly important to make sure that buyers are protected and advocated for. And at the end of the day, not taken advantage of. And a great agent will find a way to do that for you and more. If you need a list of interview questions to ask buyers agents, go ahead and in the description box below, I've linked a questionnaire. You can just go ahead and click on that, print out several copies. I have room for you to take notes as you interview different buyers agents. So if you have additional questions, feel free to call or text me anytime at 406-890-5390. I am always happy to help. I primarily work within Flathead County, Montana, but I have partnered with amazing agents throughout the state of Montana and even the country as a whole. So if you don't know where to begin, go ahead and send me a text, give me a call, shoot me a message. I would be happy to send you a few agents to get the ball rolling. And if you are buying a home virtually from afar, please be sure to hire a buyer agent locally there in that area with boots on the ground, because I have already started seeing AI, things that AI can do, and people telling it to create these amazing videos of homes that don't even exist and trying to sell them. So this cannot be good. So you definitely need somebody there with boots on the ground that can verify, yes, this house exists. It really is here, give you a tour, tell you what might be wrong with it, point out any defects, and have your best interest in mind. All right, that's all I have for today. Be sure to hit that notification bell so you get notified when new videos drop. Have an amazing week, and I will see you next time.